Dr. Berger, thank you so much for taking time to speak with me today about private equity. Just got a couple questions for you. So first off, when was your practice associated urological specialist acquired by Solaris Health?
So we closed on our transaction with Solaris Health on March 1st of 2021. So we're about 3.5 years in at this point.
Okay, great. So how did that acquisition start? How did it start to involve your position as CMO? Were you part of the research process?
Well, the CMO title actually was post Solaris closing. We had some redefinition of the roles in our executive team, but I was on the executive committee prior to joining and was doing a lot of the same stuff, just without the title. Um, but we had been tossing around the idea of private equity for a couple of years prior to actually really deciding to move forward with Solaris and start the whole process. But so we had some discussions with a few other platforms, but ultimately we felt that the Solaris model was the best choice for our group, and then that's when we really started going in earnest as far as the process was probably the latter half of 2020. So we did our entire deal and all the calls and everything else in the middle of COVID. So actually never met anyone in person throughout the whole process until after the fact. So probably a little unique private equity transaction to never actually meet anybody until it's all over with.
That's really interesting. So, what is one word you would use to describe the acquisition process in the beginning, middle, end, at the closing of the acquisition process?
I think at the beginning, when we were kind of discussing this as a group and really deciding, if this was the right choice for us, I would say the key word or one word answer to that would be cautious. It's always a bit scary, the unknown, and having major changes potentially. So it's always easier to stick with the status quo. But after doing our due diligence and really delving into what they were trying to achieve, we really felt that this was a good step for our practice. But certainly we were very cautious in the beginning. Once we got going and, the private equity team and the lawyers start asking for documents and operating agreements and all sorts of other stuff throughout the process, I would say the operative word there was tedious. Definitely was a lot of work, a lot of hours on Zoom calls with attorneys and other folks to go over all the particulars. But certainly obviously got done in the end. And then as far as when we finally got to the closing, I think it was probably a tie between relief and excitement. Just that it was all finally over with after a lot of work and a long process, and a lot of time and effort spent by multiple members of our practice and executive team. So definitely was a lot of work, but I think that in the end it was certainly well worth it, at least so far.
Right, really interesting. So, did the acquisition process ever feel aggressive or rushed?
No, I don't think so. I mean, this was not really, I don't think it was any kind of aggressive, sales pitch or anything like that. I mean, we showed our interest. We had the Solaris leaders, kind of talk to our group on multiple occasions and go through questions, which I'm sure are questions common for many groups going through this process. But once we started going, it wasn't really rushed. I mean, certainly once we have a target closing date and, they're really shooting for getting it done at a certain time, the volume of calls and meetings and, nights and weekends and all that kind of stuff of dealing with, our attorneys and their attorneys and getting all the documents and ducks in a row. Definitely took some time, but that was, really didn't happen until toward the end of the process. But it was never like a pressured deal or pressured sell or like, take it or leave it kind of situation. It was, kind of on our timeline until toward the end, when once they kind of have a date set that they want to finish the project, then that's when it's really kind of got going in earnest.
Very cool. So how has AUS become more valuable or valued since the acquisition?
As far as how our practice has improved its valuation, I mean, I don't know what the actual valuation would be, but I certainly feel like we've accomplished a lot in a short time. I mean, right off the bat, we definitely have had a lot of efficiencies in terms of cost savings, just with the economies of scale that we now have as far as ordering supplies and equipment and different drugs and different contracting items. Since there's a large number of practices now involved, a lot of people involved, ordering a lot of products and supplies. It just makes it more efficient and in a lot of cases better priced for everybody. Um, so certainly on the supply chain side, we've had some savings, which will increase our value, and we also had some efficiencies as far as different processes we were doing. As far as some of our ancillary services as well, like pathology and radiation services. The expertise that Solaris brought really helped us to improve some of those processes and find some cost savings there. And then now it's really a matter of not just saving money on supplies and equipment and service contracts and all that kind of stuff, but now we're really working towards taking the knowledge that is a wealth of knowledge across the Solaris platform. And certainly, we like to think we do a good job in a lot of areas, but there's certainly a lot of the other affiliates that do better job in certain areas. So now it's a matter of, we've been able to learn from our colleagues and find, whether it be clinical pathways or just processes in terms of getting, patients through a certain disease state and getting them onto proper treatments a little bit faster. How to operationalize, certain treatments with using advanced practice providers rather than the doctors to make things more efficient. So I think not only it's on the supply chain side, the contracting side, but also now on the actual clinical practice side, we've been able to learn and kind of pick and choose, from the different affiliates what's worked and how we can really make ourselves more valuable moving forward and do and provide our patients even better care.
That is really great. So how have day-to-day operations changed since the acquisition?
As far as the day-to-day, and I get asked that question a lot for people that are not in the private equity space, and honestly, there's really not been a huge change. Those my colleagues that are really not involved with the leadership team and just are continuing just to see patients and do their normal stuff. Like there's really not a lot day to day that's changed. The non-clinical staff became employees of Solaris, so there's a little different structure as far as some of the HR things and compliance things that now we're doing across the whole platform that everyone has to do. But that's as far as day-to-day patient care. They really have not imposed any changes, and that's one of the things we liked about the platform. And they told us from the beginning that they were interested in acquiring us because we were doing a good job already, and basically they just want us to keep doing what we're doing, and they can enhance and help where they can. But for the most part, the day-to-day has not changed substantially since our transaction with Solaris.
That's wonderful. It sounds like a win-win. So, in the past, I'd say probably like 2 or 3 years ago, even, I would hear independent practitioners speak about PE as if it was something scary, like this impending doom, this formidable foe that was just not ideal for how they prefer to do business. But, hearing you talk about how Solaris is running, um, working with you guys, it sounds like there are a lot of positive aspects to being operated by a private equity firm. So can you just talk about a few?
Sure. I mean, I think one point of clarification is, I don't think that, I mean, the PE firm is not operating the practice, so to speak. The day-to-day operations are coming from the, physician-owned, majority physician-owned medical services organization, or MSO, and the PE firm is basically the capital that helps that operate, and also, provides business expertise when needed. But it's really the MSO, which is, majority owned by the doctors in Solaris, that is really running the day-to-day operations. And I think one of the aspects of the Solaris platform that we liked, and that I don't think has no one's changed their mind on this, is that no one really wanted to be micromanaged. No one wants to have someone looking over their shoulder and saying, well, you need to do this and you need to do that and you need to see this many patients and you need to have this many weekend clinics or this many evening clinics, things like that. It's business as usual, and the MSO helps along the way. Certainly there's been some changes as far as some processes and supply chain and other projects we've done to try to improve efficiencies across the whole platform. But certainly, I don't think it's anything necessarily scary. I think there's a lot of misinformation and misconceptions about what PE really is. And I think the other dangerous thing that sometimes people do is they throw the term PE around like it's a one-size-fits-all. There are lots of different models. Solaris has one model. Other PE platforms have different models of how they run things and how the finances work. And there's some that are multi-specialty, some are single specialty. So it really, if for anyone looking into this, as far as their practice or in their future practice, this is really something that you need to know the details of how the operating agreements are set up, and if those things can be changed, if there's another PE firm that comes on board in the future. So it's really in the details that makes the difference as far as what the PE transaction really is. But I don't think it's more probably scary just for lack of knowledge and hearing a lot of misinformation about what PE actually is than necessarily the reality.
That is really good to hear. So are your patients aware that AUS was acquired by Solaris Health?
We made no secret that this happened. When we had our sale, we put it on our website. It was on our various Facebook page or LinkedIn page or whatever with the announcement. So we definitely didn't make a secret. But from a patient standpoint, I don't think they really, other than some, the website may look a little different, or there may be some signage or something along those lines on documents, but it's really not. I mean, they don't know the difference. They're still seeing the same doctors. It's not like anything necessarily changed just because we were now acquired by Solaris Health. So, we certainly didn't make a secret about it, but I'm not sure patients really. I can't really remember too many patients asking, "Oh, what's this all about? What does this mean for me?" So, because it really, for them, it doesn't really mean anything other than we have a little extra words in our title of our practice that we're an affiliate of Solaris Health, and other than that, I don't think it makes a difference for them.
That's great. So what happens when the company sold again? Is that a concern?
I don't think it's a concern. I think it's something we all hope happens. One of the reasons to go down this path and proceed with a private equity deal is you do get some equity in the company, and and hopefully if everything is successful, then at some point it'll be valuable to somebody else, and hopefully it will be sold again. In which case our equity will hopefully grow. Obviously that's a risk. You never know. It's like any other investment. There's no guarantee, but I feel like we have smart people at the top that are managing the MSO, and hopefully that'll be the case at some point. And again, as I talked about earlier, really the details are what matter, because the agreements that we have when we initially signed with Solaris and the other practices have, those can't change unilaterally. So someone else can't come in and say, oh, now we're doing things this way, or this is how you're now getting paid, or this is, now you have to see patients every other weekend, or things like that. So unless we agree to any changes in our contracts or operating agreements, a new PE firm who potentially would buy Solaris can't come in and just say, okay, now here, this is how we're doing it now. So I think that's definitely peace of mind for us, that we can't kind of have the rug pulled out from under us with a whole new set of rules if someone else comes in.
That is awesome. So does the staff or employees get any equity as part of this acquisition?
In general, no. There are, I think, a few very high-level employees that are not physicians in the MSO that do have some small equity component, but the vast majority of the equity in Solaris is the physicians.
Got it. So, okay, who do you think, or what kind of company do you think a private equity acquisition is ideal for?
That's a great question. I mean, I think that it really could be for anybody. I don't know if there's a specific type of practice or type of provider or type of physician that is better suited to this than others. I think we felt that in our marketplace, being in a major city with lots of academic medical centers that have lots of resources, that we felt that having some support on a larger scale was going to be beneficial for our practice. And I've talked to other groups that are maybe in smaller areas, or areas where there's not a lot of big competitors, or they almost have a monopoly, and their answer is, well, why do I need private equity? We're doing really well on our own, and that may be true. But certainly the potential for additional equity and return on that equity potentially is something that you're not going to really have just staying in your own independent practice without any PE involvement. But for a lot of places, maybe they're fine with that and they're doing well and don't really want to go down that road. So certainly not for everybody, but I can't really think of anyone that really couldn't at least consider it, because it's really has not changed the day to day. Like I said, people don't want to be micromanaged, which we're not. And I think it's been really nice to collaborate with the other members and other affiliate practices to really come up with best practices and improve patient care on a entire platform level. So I think it's really something that really anyone could look at.
That is awesome. So 10 years from now, where do you see AUS as a result of this acquisition by Solaris Health?
In 10 years, well, I hopefully still have my hair, and I'm hoping that at that point in 10 years, hopefully we've gone through at least one, maybe two additional transactions. So hopefully all of our equity will grow. So that would be, the goal on the financial side. But on the, patient care side, I think what we've started and what we're trying to continue and really grow is really coming up across the platform with clinical pathways and best practices that really can stand out as a model for urologic care across the country. and trying to provide good value to our patients in an independent setting, to give them state of the art care that provides good value to them. And hopefully that process will just continue to grow. It's, we've had a lot of discussions about that over the past year and made a lot of progress. But hopefully it will just continue to grow, and the value of that hopefully will become self-evident as we move forward.
That is really, really great. So lastly, what would you say is the major success of this whole thing, this acquisition, and now you're, about 2 years into it. What would you say was the major success at this point?
I'd say that for us, there's probably been, a couple major successes. I think the number one was some of the efficiencies I touched on earlier. We've had some significant cost savings and streamlining of processes and things of that nature. So, anytime you can save money for your practice, that's certainly a good thing. But again, as I mentioned earlier, I think the biggest clinical success at the moment is really the development of the Solaris clinical pathways, which a lot of people, myself included, have put a lot of time and effort in. And this has been rolled out recently to all the different affiliates to really allow consistency of care, which, anyone that's been to see a doctor, depending on who you see, you might get very different opinions from two different people, and that still can happen. We're not asking people to be robots, but certainly having these pathways in there to really help people navigate what's the right, what's the right thing to do, what does the data say, what do the guidelines say, making sure they're getting the proper care at the proper time, in a high value fashion. That is really, I think, a success that has already come to some fruition and will only get better as we fine tune these things and get them, wider adoption moving forward.
That is really, really great. It sounds like the future is bright for AUS and Solaris Health. Dr. Berger, thank you so much for taking time out to speak with me. This has been truly eye-opening, and thank you so much for that.
Sounds good. Thank you very much.